This is David Griffith, editor of Police Magazine. As we approach the 20th anniversary of 9/11, police is conducting a series of special podcasts with law enforcement officers who experienced that horrible day in person. My guest for this podcast is Frank DeMasi. Frank is a retired NYPD officer who served with the Emergency Services Unit. On 9/11, Frank and other officers from the ESU, which is trained in both tactical operations and emergency medical response, were some of the first officers on the scene. In the second of two podcasts with Frank, we will discuss his experiences in the aftermath of 9/11. Frank, thank you for your time today.
No problem.
What was your mission the day after 9/11?
So the day after 9/11, we were searching for people who were alive. We were searching voids and crawling into voids and checking train station that was under the World Trade Center and checking surrounding buildings and rooftops. And we were in the hopes of finding people alive. And as I said earlier, we always thought we'd find more people than we did. I remember our guys, the night of September 11th into the morning of September 12th, it was our guys that made the rescue of the two Port Authority cops that were depicted in the movie World Trade Center. It was actually an emergency service officer, one of our guys, and his name is actually in the movie. His name is Scott Strauss. And he made an incredible rescue of one of the Port Authority officers that next morning. But again, after that, it was just insane that we thought we were going to rescue hundreds of people, and it never happened.
How many people were rescued?
There were two rescued that morning. There was a police officer from the Port Authority Police and a sergeant from the Port Authority Police. And both of them were in pretty bad shape. They were there from the collapse until as the sun was coming up the next day.
And they were the only survivors?
Yes. Their whole team was gone. Yes.
What was your workload like in the first month after 9/11?
So we were working 16 to 18-hour days. It was just insanity. Working there, it was the most dangerous demolition site you can ever imagine to be on, with the fires burning, and just the pile was always shifting when you were walking on it. You didn't know if there was going to be secondary collapses. You didn't know if the debris you were standing on was going to come out right from under your feet. I remember at the beginning, we were just so overwhelmed by the enormity of the whole site. I mean, it looked like a baseball field filled with debris. It probably was the size of a baseball field filled with debris. And it was just so overwhelming. You didn't know where to start. You could start moving things by hand, but then you'd come upon concrete or steel that couldn't be moved by a person. It had to be moved by a crane. So yeah, it was very overwhelming to us the first month or so, until we got these big earth movers in, and they can assist in moving the heavy debris.
And what exactly were you looking for? You were no longer looking for survivors. You were looking for remains, or?
After the first month, yes, that's when it became, and I keep saying a month, but it was roughly about 3 weeks to a month when it went from a rescue operation to a recovery. And once that's done, I mean, it's kind of like a psychological thing. Once something becomes a recovery operation, you're kind of making peace with the fact that you're not going to find anybody alive anymore. It would be a miracle if you did. So the first month, I mean, again, you were checking voids, you were listening. I mean, I remember it being so silent when you were out there, and people always yelling to be quiet because you were listening for cries for help or just listening for signs of life.
And were you recovering objects that belonged to these people, or?
Yes.
What?
Yes. So there were times where we'd find just a body part. And I'll tell you, it was so crazy because it would almost be cause for excitement, as if you found somebody, because we knew at that point, if we found whatever, a finger, a leg, we knew there was something that we can return to someone's loved one, a mother, a father, son or daughter. We knew we had something that we can give to them as a remain. I mean, there were so many people. I mean, just in emergency service, I lost 14 friends that day. And out of the 14, we only recovered 5 people. The rest were just gone. They disintegrated. I remember going to funerals, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. And some of these funerals, people were burying empty caskets because they had nothing. They had nothing to bury. So, yeah, sometimes we'd even find like an ID card of a World Trade Center worker. And again, we knew it was something that we can return to a loved one.
You said you were working at Ground Zero from 9/11 till May 31st, 2002, and were undoubtedly exposed to hazardous materials. Have you experienced any health issues from your exposure?
I have, but I really consider myself one of the lucky ones. So many people, so many people have died since September 11th. I belong to a police group, and we're about to get ready to do a memorial for the 20th anniversary. And between last year and this year, and this is just law enforcement, this is not fire or civilians, this is just law enforcement. Between last year and this year, we're adding over 100 names to the list of officers that have died after September 11th. So again, I consider myself very lucky. I have, some respiratory issues and some digestive issues. But again, I'm blessed to be here, to watch my children grow up, to give me grandchildren. I'm so blessed. And, it might be a quick moment to even talk about the survivor's guilt I went through, because that's coming back to mind now. It was just so tough. Like, I remember even the day after I had it, thinking, like, what gives me the right to be here when, and anybody I mentioned that I knew that got killed on September 11th, why isn't Ronnie here? Why isn't Santos here? Why isn't anybody here? What gives me the right to watch my children grow when they can't? So I went through that for a while too.
What do you want today's law enforcement officers, some of whom were children at the time of the attack, to remember about 9/11?
The only thing I can tell them is, first of all, prepare for anything. We didn't know that morning that was going to happen. We were tapped on the shoulder and called to the scene to perform a job. And the other thing that police officers need to realize is that once you're down there and you're handling that situation, nobody else is coming. That's it. You're it. You get called to a job, and that job has to get done. And, like the military, once that uniform goes on, the risk is always there that you may lose your life. And that's in any job. That's not just the World Trade Center coming down. That's anything. So you need to always prepare yourself physically and mentally for any situation that may come up. Again, we didn't think that was going to happen when we went to work that day, and all of a sudden it just happened. So be prepared is the best advice that I can ever give.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.